Public Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. You know what's interesting we're talking about Tim Scott being single as we were before the news.
We found out some more information.
Well, back in 2012, he basically said he was a virgin until 30. The 30-year-old virgin, Tim Scott. But that after 16 years in public life, he was not a virgin anymore. Although he still properly understood the biblical admonition on the topic. It would be interesting, actually, if he talked about that. It would get him a lot of attention.
It would be cool. Like, why he's not married, and his whole
30-year-old virgin.
Well,
I mean, it's sort of like all the attention that was generated by Mike Pence. The press finding out that Mike Pence will not have dinner alone with a woman who's not his wife.
Right. Or lunch. He will not go anywhere with a woman alone because he doesn't want any accusations.
Yeah. But so, I mean, it's just, it would be interesting how the conversation that would generate if Tim Scott decided to take that issue on straight away. Anyway, I mean, these cultural issues are important. They're certainly important to the left, it would seem, and not just domestically. We used to be in the business of trying to export small d democracy. Now we're in the business of trying to export cultural Marxism. This piece from S.A. McCarthy at realclearinvestigations.com. He's a news writer at the Washington Stand. He's also been published by the American Spectator and Crisis Magazine. Woke U.S. Diplomacy is the name of his piece. Not 100% popular around the globe, nor at home. We talk a lot about it at home. We don't talk as much about, I don't know, State Department grants to finance drag shows in Ecuador, or to promote greater social acceptance of LGBTQ in Botswana. Highest, best use of our tax dollars, your tax dollars. S.A. McCarthy joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me on the show, guys.
So exporting cultural Marxism, the alphabet soup of DI and LGBTQ2S+++, that's something that's been attendant to the Biden administration from its outset.
Yeah, it's something that Biden signed a national security memorandum and issued it pretty shortly after being sworn into office, declaring LGBTQ advocacy chief goal for federal institutions, and especially federal institutions abroad. And so you've got all these U.S. embassies, the U.S. State Department promoting LGBT ideology, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, in foreign nations that we're supposed to be fostering, decent diplomatic relationships with, and in some cases we're actually jeopardizing that in order to promote this ideology.
Well, give us an example of how the relationship is being jeopardized. I mean, I can understand in certain countries with certain segments, including maybe the government, they don't share these views about men gyrating, in scantily clad men pretending to be women gyrating in front of kids. Some people in the Western Hemisphere might not like that. Some people in religious-oriented governments in Africa and elsewhere might not like that. But how does that translate beyond just them seeing sort of America as profligate and perhaps immoral to the sort of the larger policy framework of the relationship?
Yeah, so this is not just a matter of, we differ on, we have the same goals, my country and your country, we have the same goals. We just differ on policies to achieve that goal. This is a fundamental difference in actual goals, in the actual purpose of what each government is trying to achieve. So you have, as you noted, in some nations, it's like majority Muslim nations, promotion of LGBTQ and such is not overtly popular. It would be safe to say. You've got in some countries, like in Kuwait, you actually had the U.S. ambassador to Kuwait was actually called into the Kuwaiti government's office and was to some degree, censured. He was reprimanded publicly for promoting LGBTQ ideology in a nation where same-sex sexual activity is not legally permissible.
Well,
And even in what we consider more like advanced nations, like in Hungary, the U.S. ambassador there, David Pressman, has been taking heat from the Hungarian government for promoting LGBTQ ideology in classrooms and such, and criticizing laws that they have saying, you can't promote LGBT ideology to minors. And he's been criticizing that and has been publicly criticized for it by the Hungarian government.
well, in your article that's at realclearinvestigations.com, you said that there's nearly $5 million has been spent abroad on LGBT programs alone. What exactly are they getting for $5 million?
Lots. They're getting promotion. You're getting. You've got some of the specific examples that I cite in the article are things like you've got a $20,000 grant from the U.S. State Department to fund drag shows in Ecuador. These are the same kind of events that we have American citizens showing up to protest, in Texas, in Virginia, West Virginia, all over the nation. We've got U.S. citizens showing up to protest these things in our own backyard. But we're paying $20,000 to an LGBT organization in Ecuador so they can put on drag shows. We paid $10,000 in a grant to a Portuguese LGBT activism group. They funded a film festival that included drag performances and depictions of incest and pederasty, which is same-sex sexual relationships between an adult male and a male child, post-pubescent
Yeah.
male who's a minor. And
That's
we're
illegal.
funding that $10,000 to fund films promoting incest, pederasty, and drag shows. And we gave a $300,000 grant to Botswana to fund LGBTQ advocacy groups that specifically target, quote, religious groups and traditional groups, end quote. So, like the Roman Catholic Church, most evangelical Christians, Muslims, Orthodox Jews, who say that LGBTQism, homosexuality, etc., is immoral. They say that it should be, avoided, or something that maybe isn't healthy for you spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and yet we're funding to the tune of over $250,000 in a foreign nation. We're funding initiatives to target those groups, those religious organizations.
Well, I mean, it's good enough to fund them in our government school systems here. So I guess what's good for us is good for the rest of the world. So we think. I mean, this isn't surprising, and the values coming into conflict not surprising either. But I'm sort of more interested in what, and you started to get to this with the Kuwait and our ambassador being censured by the Kuwaiti government, effectively censured by the Kuwaiti government. How this phrase the relationship between countries, particularly where maybe the relationship isn't that strong to begin with, or there's skepticism on both sides. It's sort of relationships out of necessity that are on again, off again, versus more long-standing relationships, and particularly in the West, where the West has sort of gone in the direction of cultural Marxism, like we have as well. Yeah, the developing world in particular, I just wonder how that plays out in terms of our ability to collaborate with these governments for more important matters than exporting cultural Marxism, like things that have to do with our national security or things that have to do with opening up markets for American goods and services.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, if you look at as you mentioned in the developing world, look at Uganda. You don't really need to look much further than that. They just introduced a law introducing stricter penalties for what was already previously criminalized same-sex sexual activity, particularly introducing like life imprisonment for pedophilia, acts of pedophilia, and we've been criticizing them for that. That's a developing nation. They're a nation that it relies really and to a large degree on Western generosity, Western goodness and kindness. And so if we want to promote these ideas of taking care of people, taking care of the needy, why aren't we taking care of them? Instead, you've got the World Bank is trying to cut funding to them. You've got the U.S. is criticizing them, including Republicans. I remember Ted Cruz made a Twitter post criticizing them for their new laws. We're trying to dictate laws to foreign nations, and especially foreign nations, even some that we consider, more advanced or more sophisticated. If you look at Europe, for example, most of Western Europe, in France, in the UK, even in countries like Sweden, you've got a number of these countries are now backing off of transgenderism, particularly transgenderism for children, these gender transition procedures for minors, and saying there's not enough research out about these things. We're not going to push this. We're not going to promote this. And yet we're still doing that, not just here, but we're trying to do that to these other nations who are saying, you know what, we've done our research. We think that this might be a bad idea. And so with all the crises that we have going on across the globe, we really need to be fostering strong relationships with these foreign entities instead of just promoting an ideology that they've already looked at and chosen not to promote or advance or accept.
He is S.A. McCarthy, news writer for the Washington Stand, also been published in the American Spectator, Real Clear Investigations, and Crisis Magazine. RealClearInvestigations.com is where you can find his piece, Woke U.S. Diplomacy, not 100% popular around the globe, nor at home. S.A., thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Hi, folks. Dennis Prager here. You've probably been hearing my colleagues and me talking about investing with YRefi for a while now. You may have some questions, so let's review. It's true. You can earn up to a 10.25% fixed rate of return that is not correlated to the stock market or the Fed. You can turn your income on or off, compound it, whatever you choose. And the